"You'll never shift, Larry." Those words echoed in my ears as I stood outside the pack hall, holding my breath like it might somehow make me invisible. My hands were buried deep in my jacket sleeves, trembling despite the warmth of the evening. Inside me, where everyone else felt their wolf stirring and growling and making itself known, there was only silence. A vast, empty silence that had haunted me for 6 years. Most Omega teenagers shifted when they turned 16. It was a rite of passage, a moment of celebration when families gathered and the pack cheered. I remembered watching them, one by one, their bodies transforming under the full moon while their wolves finally emerged. But when my 16th birthday came and went, nothing happened. 17 passed the same way. 18, 19, 20. 21. Now I was 22 and still nothing. The pack had their theories, of course. Defective, broken, mateless. Words that cut deeper than any claw ever could. They whispered them when they thought I couldn't hear, but I always did. Omegas had sensitive hearing, even ones like me who couldn't shift. It was almost cruel, really. I had all the weaknesses of an Omega with none of the strengths that came with having a wolf. "Larry, why are you standing out here?" I turned to see Milo approaching, my best friend since childhood. His brown eyes held that familiar mix of concern and reassurance that I'd come to depend on over the years. He was one of the few people in the pack who didn't treat me like I was contagious. "The ceremony's about to start," Milo continued, gesturing toward the hall. "The Alpha King is arriving any minute now." I managed a weak smile, though it felt more like a grimace. "I know. Just needed a moment. It's crowded in there." "Nervous?" Milo asked, though we both knew the answer. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You know he's just here for the treaty signing, right? And maybe to find his mate. It's not like he's going to personally inspect every pack member." "Right," I agreed, but my stomach still twisted into knots. "He definitely won't notice the defective Omega hiding in the corner." Milo's expression softened. "You're not defective. Don't let them make you believe that." But how could I not believe it when the evidence was overwhelming? Every Omega my age had shifted years ago. Every single one had felt the rush of their wolf taking control, had experienced the freedom of running on 4 legs under the moonlights. Every single one except me. Alpha King Rhett Ashford was a legend in our territory. At 28, he ruled the largest werewolf kingdom in the region, with an iron fist. Stories about him varied depending on who was telling them. Some said he was ruthless and cold, that he'd killed challengers with his bare hands before he'd even fully matured. Others claimed he was fair but unforgiving, that crossing him meant certain death. What everyone agreed on was that his wolf was impossibly dominant, a force of nature that could make even the strongest alphas submit with a single growl. He was also notably unmated. For an alpha of his age and status, that was unusual. Most alphas found their mates in their early 20s. The fact that Rhett hadn't found his yet spawned all sorts of speculation. Some believed his standards were impossibly high. Others whispered that perhaps he'd rejected his mate, though that seemed unlikely given how sacred the mate bond was supposed to be. Today he was visiting our pack because his kingdom shared a border with our territory. There were treaties to renew, alliances to strengthen, and politics to navigate. The kind of important business that had nothing to do with someone like me. I followed Milo inside, immediately hit by the noise and energy of the crowded hall. Alphas stood in clusters discussing territory disputes and trade agreements. Betas moved efficiently through the space, ensuring everything was perfect for the Alpha King's arrival. Omegas, dressed in their finest clothes, gathered in excited groups, whispering and giggling about the possibility of catching the Alpha King's eye. I made my way to my usual spot in the far corner, where the shadows were deepest and the attention was minimal. This was where I belonged, in the margins, away from the pack members who actually mattered. Defective Omegas didn't get to stand among the respected members of the pack. We learned early to make ourselves small, to take up as little space as possible. The excited chatter in the hall suddenly dropped to hushed whispers, and I knew without looking that something significant was happening. Then the scent hit me, rolling through the space like a physical force. Pine and rain and something wild that I couldn't name. It crashed over me in waves, making my heart hammer against my ribs so hard I thought everyone must be able to hear it. My skin erupted in goosebumps, every nerve ending suddenly alive and hypersensitive. What was happening to me? I'd never reacted to a scent like this before. Never felt anything remotely close to this intensity. My hands gripped the wall behind me as my knees threatened to give out. The air in my lungs seemed too thick to breathe properly. The massive double doors at the entrance swung open, and the entire hall fell into complete silence. I couldn't see over the crowd from my position in the corner, but I could feel the shift in energy as Alpha King Rhett Ashford entered the space. The sheer weight of his presence seemed to press down on everyone, commanding instant respect and submission. People parted like water, creating a clear path, and that's when I finally saw him. He was everything the stories claimed and more. Tall, easily over 6 feet, with shoulders broad enough to block out the light. Dark hair that looked like he'd run his fingers through it too many times. And eyes, piercing gray eyes that seemed to see straight through every pretense and deception. Behind him walked his beta guards. 3 of them, all moving with military precision. They were clearly well-trained, disciplined, alert to every potential threat. But my attention kept getting pulled back to Rhett himself. He took 3 steps into the hall and then stopped abruptly. His entire body went rigid, tense in a way that made every guard immediately go on high alert. His head turned slowly, those gray eyes scanning the crowd with an intensity that made people flinch and look away. He was searching for something, someone. Please don't look at me, I thought desperately. Please don't notice me. I tried to make myself smaller, shrinking back against the wall, willing myself to disappear entirely. But the universe had never been particularly kind to me. Rhett's gaze swept across the hall and locked directly onto me. For a moment time seemed to stop. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't do anything but stare back at him. His eyes widened, his chest began heaving like he'd just run a marathon, and his hands clenched into fists at his sides. No, I thought. This can't be happening. Not to me. Not with him. Then Rhett's mouth opened and a single word erupted from him with such force that it shook the very foundations of the building. His voice was raw, primal, absolutely certain. Mate! Chaos erupted instantly. Gasps rippled through the crowd like a shockwave. Heads whipped around, searching for whoever the Alpha King had identified. When they realized all eyes were on me, the whispers started, sharp and cutting even in their hushed tone. The Wolfless one? That's impossible. There must be some mistake. He can't even shift. The Alpha King's mate is that broken Omega? This has to be wrong. Each word was a knife sliding between my ribs, but I couldn't focus on them because Rhett was moving toward me. His steps were measured, purposeful, eating up the distance between us with frightening speed. The crowd scrambled to get out of his way, pack members practically throwing themselves aside to create a clear path. I stumbled backward, my back hitting the wall with enough force to knock the air from my lungs. No, this is wrong. There's been some kind of mistake. I can't stay exactly where you are. The command in his voice was absolute, layering through the air with alpha authority that made my body freeze instantly. I hadn't even realized alphas could do that, could make your body obey before your brain had time to process the order. My omega instincts took over completely. My neck tilted to the side, baring my throat in automatic submission. Every muscle locked in place. I couldn't have moved if I'd wanted to, and part of me was terrified by how easily he'd taken control of my body. But how was this even possible? The mate bond was supposed to be felt by both wolves. I didn't have a wolf. I'd never had a wolf. This had to be some cruel joke, some mistake that would be corrected as soon as Rhett got close enough to realize what everyone else already knew. I was defective. He stopped directly in front of me, so close I could feel the heat radiating from his body. He was even more imposing up close, all hard muscle and barely restrained power. That scent, pine and rain, surrounded me completely, drowning out everything else until I felt dizzy with it. Look at me, he said, and though his voice had softened slightly, it still carried that edge of command. I forced my eyes up to meet his. Gray eyes, I thought from across the room, but up close I could see flecks of silver in them, almost like moonlight captured in his irises. They were intense, searching, seeing far too much. Something inside my chest moved. Actually moved. Like a sleeping creature stirring awake after a very long rest. I gasped, pressing my hand against my sternum, feeling for whatever had just shifted inside me. Rhett's eyes tracked the movement, his nostrils flaring as he scented the air around me. You felt that, he said, and it wasn't a question. The bond is there. I can feel it pulling me toward you. That's not possible, I whispered, my voice barely audible even in the silent hall. I don't have a wolf. Everyone knows that. I'm broken. His jaw clenched, a muscle ticking in his cheek. What's your name? Larry. The word came out shaky, uncertain. Larry, he repeated, and the way he said it made it sound like something precious, something worth protecting. He raised his hand slowly, giving me time to see it coming, and his fingers stopped just short touching my face. Close enough that I could feel the warmth of his palm near my cheek. I'm going to make this very clear to everyone here. He turned, addressing the entire hall without taking his eyes off me. His voice rang out with undeniable authority. This Omega is my mate. From this moment forward, he is under my direct protection. Anyone who disrespects him, anyone who harms him, anyone who even thinks about treating him as anything less than what he is will answer to me personally. Is that understood? Silence greeted his declaration. Then slowly, people began nodding, murmuring their acknowledgments. I saw shock on every face, disbelief in every expression. My pack alpha, Derek, pushed his way through the crowd. His face had gone pale, his usual confidence completely shattered. Your Majesty, with all due respect, I believe there's been some confusion. This Omega has never shifted. He doesn't have a wolf. He's been examined by our pack healers multiple times, and they've all confirmed that he's— Choose your next words very carefully, Red interrupted, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Derek swallowed hard, but pressed on. He's incomplete, Your Majesty. He lacks the fundamental characteristics that would make him a suitable mate for someone of your station. Perhaps the bond you're feeling— Rhett's eyes flashed gold, his wolf rising so close to the surface that the air around us seemed to crackle with energy. The temperature in the hall dropped noticeably. Several Omegas whimpered and submitted on the spot, unable to withstand the crushing weight of his dominance. Did you just call my mate incomplete? Each word was enunciated with deadly precision. I didn't mean offense, I was simply stating the facts. Derek backpedaled, hands raised in a placating gesture. Get out of my sight before I forget that I'm here as a guest and not as a conqueror. The threat in Rhett's voice was unmistakable. Derek fled, practically running from the hall. Other pack members who had been standing nearby quickly dispersed, suddenly finding urgent business elsewhere. The message was clear: the Alpha King had claimed me, and disagreeing with that name was a death sentence. For the first time in my life, someone had defended me. Someone had stood between me and the judgment of others. Someone had claimed me as worthy, as belonging. I didn't know what to do with that feeling. Rhett's attention returned to me and his expression softened marginally. He reached out again, and this time his fingers made contact, curling gently around my wrist. His touch sent electricity racing up my arm, making that thing in my chest move again, more insistently this time. You're coming with me, he said firmly. We're leaving. Now, I can't just leave, I protested weakly, even though part of me desperately wanted to escape this place and all its painful memories. My things will be sent for later. Right now, you need to be somewhere safe, somewhere you're not being judged by people who clearly don't recognize your value. He kept hold of my wrist as he guided me through the hall. People stared, whispered, pointed. I heard every cruel comment, saw every disbelieving expression. The Wolfless Omega and the Alpha King. It sounded like the setup to a joke. Outside, a sleek black SUV waited, flanked by guards. One of them opened the rear door as we approached. We're returning to the kingdom, Rhett told his guards. Clear the fastest route, and alert the palace that I'm bringing my mate home. My mate, he kept saying it with such certainty, such conviction, like there was no room for doubt. As he helped me into the vehicle, he shrugged off his jacket and draped it over my shoulders. The scent enveloped me immediately, warm and comforting and somehow right. For the first time since this impossible situation began, I felt something other than panic. I felt safe. The SUV pulled away from the pack hall and I watched through the window as my old life disappeared behind us. Somewhere deep inside my chest, that sleeping thing stirred again, and I could have sworn I heard a voice, faint and distant, but unmistakably real. The drive to Rhett's kingdom took over an hour, and the silence between us was heavy with unspoken questions. I sat wrapped in his jacket, breathing in that pine and rain scent, trying to make sense of everything that had just happened. My entire life had been upended in the span of minutes. One moment I was the pack's biggest disappointment. The next I was apparently the Alpha King's mate. It didn't feel real. None of this felt real. Rhett sat beside me in the back seat, his large frame taking up most of the space. He hadn't let go of my hand since we'd gotten in the vehicle, his thumb occasionally brushing across my knuckles in a gesture that seemed almost unconscious. Every touch sent sparks along my skin, reminding me that whatever was happening between us, it was undeniably physical. "You're afraid of me," he observed quietly, his eyes fixed on our joined hands. Was I? I examined my feelings, trying to separate fear from the overwhelming confusion. "I'm afraid of this situation. I don't understand what's happening. You're the Alpha King and I'm nobody. I can't shift. I don't have a wolf and yet somehow you're claiming I'm your mate. It doesn't make sense." "The mate bond doesn't require logic," Rhett replied. "It simply is. From the moment I walked into that hall and caught your scent, everything in me recognized you. My wolf was screaming at me to get to you, to protect you, to claim you as mine." I pulled my hand back, needing space to think. "But I should feel it too, shouldn't I? Both wolves are supposed to recognize the bond. I don't have that. How can we be mates if only one of us can feel it?" Rhett's jaw tightened, but he didn't try to take my hand again. "Tell me about your wolf. When did you first realize something was different?" "I never had a first realization because there was never anything to realize," I said, frustration bleeding into my voice. "When I turned 16, everyone expected me to shift during the full moon ceremony. The pack gathered, the healers prepared, and I stood under the moonlight waiting for something, anything to happen. But nothing did. I felt nothing. No stirring, no presence, no voice in my head. Just emptiness." "What did the healers say? That I was an anomaly? That sometimes omegas are born without wolves? Though it's extremely rare. They examined me, tested me, tried every remedy and ritual they could think of. Nothing worked. Eventually, they declared me a lost cause and moved on. The memories stung, even now. The pack started treating me differently after that. I went from being just another omega to being the broken one, the defective one. People who used to smile at me started avoiding eye contact. Parents kept their children away from me like I might contaminate them." Rhett's hands clenched into fists on his thighs. "They abandoned you. They did what made sense to them. Why waste resources on someone who would never be a full member of the pack? That's not how packs are supposed to work," he growled. "Protecting the vulnerable is fundamental. Your alpha failed you, your pack failed you, and they're going to regret it." "I don't want revenge," I said quickly. "I just want to understand what's happening now. Why can you feel a mate bond with me when I can't feel it back? What if this is Terry? What if you realize you made a mistake and—" "Stop." He shifted in his seat to face me fully. "Look at me, Larry. Really look at me." I did. Those gray-silver eyes held mine with an intensity that made it impossible to look away. "I have spent my entire adult life waiting for this moment," Rhett said, his voice low and earnest. "I've met thousands of wolves, visited hundreds of packs, attended countless gatherings. I'd begun to think my mate didn't exist, that perhaps I was destined to rule alone. And then I walked into that hall and everything changed. Do you understand what that means? Do you understand how rare and precious this is?" My throat tightened. "But what if I can't be what you need? What if I really am broken?" "You're not broken," he said fiercely. "I refuse to believe that. There's a reason your wolf hasn't emerged yet. Maybe it was waiting for the right trigger. Maybe it needed this bond to wake up." That thing in my chest stirred again at his words, more pronounced this time. I pressed my hand against my sternum, feeling the movement beneath my skin. Rhett noticed immediately. "What is it? What do you feel?" "Something inside me keeps moving. Like there's something alive in my chest that wasn't there before. It started when you got close to me in the hall. And it's been happening periodically ever since." His expression brightened with hope. "Your wolf. It's responding to the mate bond. Larry, this is proof that you're not broken. Your wolf exists. It's just been dormant." "For 6 years?" I asked incredulously. "What kind of wolf stays dormant for 6 years? The kind that's waiting for something specific. The kind that won't settle for anything less than its true mate." He reached out slowly, telegraphing his intention, and cupped my face in both hands. His palms were warm, rough with calluses, and the contact sent a shiver through my entire body. Let me help you find your wolf. Let me prove to you that you're exactly who you're meant to be. I wanted to believe him. Standing there in his touch, feeling that thing inside me respond and stir and wake up, I wanted so desperately to believe that maybe I wasn't defective after all. That maybe there was a reason for all those years of isolation and pain. I'm scared, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. What if we try and nothing happens? What if I disappoint you? Impossible, Rhett said simply. You could never disappoint me. But I understand your fear. We'll take this at whatever pace you need. No pressure. No expectations. Just promise me you'll give this a chance. Give us a chance. The SUV slowed and I looked out the window to see massive gates opening before us. Beyond them sprawled a territory unlike anything I'd ever seen. Rolling hills, dense forests, and in the distance a palace that looked like something from a fairy tale. This is your home? I asked. Awed despite myself. Our home, Rhett corrected gently. If you'll have it. The gates closed behind us, and I realized there was no going back now. Whatever happened next, whatever I discovered about myself and my wolf, my old life was truly over. As we pulled up to the palace entrance, that voice inside me spoke again, clearer this time, more insistent. Mate, home, safe, and for the first time in 6 years I didn't feel quite so alone. The palace was even more magnificent inside than it had appeared from the outside. Servants moved quietly through marble hallways, their eyes widening when they caught sight of me beside Rhett. News traveled fast apparently. The Alpha King had brought home his mate, a wolfless omega from an insignificant pack. Rhett led me through a labyrinth of corridors, until we reached a set of ornate double doors. He pushed them open to reveal a bedroom suite that took my breath away. Rich burgundy curtains framed floor-to-ceiling windows. Silk sheets covered a massive 4-poster bed. An antique furniture that probably cost more than my entire pack's treasury decorated the space. This is your room, Rhett said, watching my reaction carefully. You'll be comfortable here. Anything you need, just ask. My room? I repeated, turning to face him. Not our room. His expression softened. I won't assume anything, Larry. You've had enough people making decisions for you. This is yours until you decide otherwise. The consideration in his gesture made my chest tighten with emotion. He was giving me space, autonomy, choice. Things I'd rarely had in my old pack. But before I could respond, moonlight streamed through the windows with sudden intensity. I gasped as my skin began to tingle, every nerve ending suddenly hyper-aware. The full moon hung heavy in the sky, its light seeming to call to something deep inside me. That voice in my head grew louder, more insistent. Mate, something's happening. I managed to say, pressing my hand against my chest where that stirring sensation had become almost violent. I can hear it clearly now. A voice. It won't stop. Rhett was at my side instantly, his hands steadying me as I swayed on my feet. Your wolf is responding to the moon and to our bond. This is good, Larry. This means she's wise up. She? I'd never thought about my wolf having a gender, having a personality separate from my own. Or he. Wolves have their own identities. Rhett guided me toward the balcony doors. The moonlight will help. Come on. We stepped out onto the balcony, and the moment the full moon's light touched my skin directly, pain exploded through my body. I collapsed, my knees hitting the stone floor hard enough to bruise. Every bone in my body felt like it was being pulled apart and reassembled. Larry, Rhett dropped beside me, his hands hovering like he wanted to help but didn't know how. What's wrong? Tell me what you're feeling. Everything hurts, I gasped out, my vision blurring with tears. My bones, they're moving, breaking. You're shifting. Awe filled his voice. After all these years, your wolf is finally coming out. Terror gripped me. I'd watched others shift dozens of times, knew intellectually what happened, but experiencing it was completely different. The pain was indescribable, like being torn apart from the inside out. I can't do this, I whimpered, trying to fight against the transformation. It's too much. I can't. Yes, you can. Rhett's voice cut through my panic with absolute certainty. Stop fighting it. Your wolf has been waiting for this moment for years. Let her out. I'm terrified. I know. His hand cupped the back of my neck, grounding me with his touch and scent. But I'm right here. I won't leave you. Whatever happens, we face it together. The conviction in his words gave me courage. I stopped resisting, stopped trying to control the uncontrollable. Instead, I surrendered to the transformation. The pain intensified to unbearable levels, but I rode it out, gasping and crying as my body reshaped itself. I felt my bones crack and reform, felt fur sprouting across my skin, felt my senses sharpen until I could hear Rhett's heartbeat and smell the night jasmine growing 3 floors below. Then suddenly the pain stopped. I was standing on 4 legs. My perspective completely changed. Everything looked different, smelled different, felt different. I turned my head, trying to catch sight of my own body, and caught a glimpse of silver fur that seemed to glow in the moonlight. Rhett had gone completely still beside me, his eyes wide with something that looked like reverence. "Silver," he breathed, his voice barely audible. "You're a silver wolf." I looked down at my paws. They were indeed silver, shimmering with an almost ethereal quality. My fur caught the moonlight and reflected it back, making me look like I was made of moonbeams solidified. "Do you understand what this means?" Rhett stood slowly, moving around me to take in my full form. "Silver wolves are mentioned in the oldest texts, the ancient prophecies. They're royalty among our kind, born once in 1,000 years. They're said to have special abilities, connections to the moon goddess herself." I would have laughed if I could in this form. Me? Special? I'd spent my entire life being told I was worthless. And now Rhett was claiming I was some kind of legendary creature? My wolf had her own opinion though. She preened under Rhett's attention, practically glowing with pride. She'd been silent for so long, trapped and unable to emerge, and now she was reveling in finally being seen. "Your eyes," Rhett continued, moving to face me directly. "They're amber, like captured sunlight." Before I could process that information, Rhett's own transformation began. His shift was smooth, practiced, taking only seconds where mine had taken minutes. His black wolf was massive, easily twice my size, with fur so dark it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. We stood there on the balcony, 2 wolves under the full moon, and something clicked into place. The mate bond, which I'd only felt faintly before, suddenly roared to life with overwhelming intensity. I could feel Rhett's emotions, his pride in me, his wonder at my apertures, his fierce protectiveness, and underneath it all, a love so profound it made me want to weep. My wolf responded with her own surge of emotion, desire, belonging, recognition. Mine. We both growled simultaneously, the word coming from someplace primal and absolute. Rhett's wolf moved closer, nuzzling against my neck in a gesture of affection and dominance. Combined, my wolf submitted automatically, tilting her head to give him better access, a purr rumbling in her hearse that I didn't know wolves could make. We stayed like that for hours, communicating in the wordless language of wolves, learning each other through scent and touch and presence. My wolf had waited 22 years for this moment, for this connection, and she wasn't going to waste a second of it. When we finally shifted back to human form as dawn approached, I was exhausted but exhilarated. Rhett wrapped a blanket around my shoulders, apparently shifting destroyed clothes, something I'd have to get used to, and pulled me against his chest. "How do you feel?" he asked softly. "Complete," I answered honestly. "For the first time in my life, I feel complete." He pressed a kiss to the top of my head. "Your wolf is magnificent." "You are magnificent," I believed him. With my wolf finally awake and the mate bond singing between us, I could finally believe that maybe, just maybe, I'd never been broken at all. I'd just been waiting for the right moment to become whole. Morning arrived too quickly. I woke in the massive bed, surrounded by silk sheets that smelled like Rhett, though he'd kept his promise and given me the room to myself. My body ached from the previous night's transformation, every muscle protesting as I sat up. A soft knock at the door preceded a servant entering with fresh clothes, soft pants and a shirt that looked expensive enough to make me nervous about wearing them. "The Alpha King requests your presence for breakfast," the servant said with a respectful bow. I dressed quickly, still marveling at the fact that I had a wolf now. I could feel her presence in my mind, a constant companion where there'd once been only silence. She was content, satisfied after finally meeting our mate's wolf. Rhett was waiting in a private dining room, a spread of food on the table that could have fed my entire former pack. He smiled when I entered, standing to pull out my chair in a gesture of courtesy that still felt foreign. "Did you sleep well?" he asked, settling back into his own seat. "Better than I have in years," I admitted, having a wolf changes everything. I can feel her now, hear her thoughts. It's overwhelming, but in the best way. His smile widened. I'm glad. You deserve to experience everything you've been missing. We ate in comfortable silence for a while before Rhett's expression turned serious. There's something we need to discuss. The Elder Council has requested a meeting. My stomach dropped. About me? Unfortunately, yes. He reached across the table to take my hand. They've heard about your past. About the years without a wolf. They have Of course they do. Bitterness crept into my voice. I'm not exactly the ideal choice for an Alpha King's mate, am I? You're the only choice, Rhett said firmly. The mate bond doesn't make mistakes. But the council has responsibilities to the kingdom, and they'll want assurances that you can handle the role of Luna. The role of Luna. Leading an entire kingdom. Being responsible for thousands of wolves, representing Rhett at his side. The weight of it pressed down on my shoulders like a physical burden. Maybe they're right to have concerns, I said quietly. I shifted for the first time less than 12 hours ago. I don't know the first thing about being Luna, about leadership or politics or any of it. Rhett's grip on my hand tightened. You'll learn. I'll teach you everything you need to know. But would that be enough? Would I ever be truly ready for this? The council meeting was held in a formal chamber. 6 elders seated in high-backed chairs arranged in a semicircle. They all stood when Rhett entered, bowing respectfully before their eyes shifted to me with varying degrees of skepticism. Alpha King, the eldest of them, began, a gray-haired beta named Marcus. We've heard remarkable reports about your mate's transformation last night. The silver wolf is indeed a rare blessing. Then you understand how fortunate this kingdom is, Rhett replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. We do, another elder, a woman named Helena, interjected. However, we must also consider the practical implications. Your mate went 22 years without a wolf. He has no training in combat, no experience with pack dynamics at this level, no knowledge of kingdom politics. Each word was like a slap, reminding me of all my inadequacies. These are valid concerns, Marcus continued, his tone not unkind. In times of war or crisis, the Luna must be able to lead in the Alpha King's absence. How can someone who shifted yesterday protect this kingdom? You're questioning my mate's capability? Rhett's voice dropped to a dangerous level, his alpha authority filling the room. We're questioning his readiness. Helena clarified quickly. There's a difference. We don't doubt that the mate bond is genuine or that he possesses a rare wolf. We simply worry that he lacks the experience for such a crucial role. They were right. Everything they were saying was completely painfully right. Then I'll prove myself, I heard myself say, my voice stronger than I expected. All eyes turned to me. If the council believes I'm unprepared, then give me a chance to demonstrate otherwise. Set trials, tests, whatever you deem necessary. I'll prove that I deserve to stand beside Rhett as his Luna. Shock registered on Rhett's face. Larry, you don't have to do this. I've already chosen you. Their approval isn't required, but it matters, I argued, turning to face him. Not just to them, but to me. I need to know I earned this position, that I'm not just here because of the mate bond. I need to prove to myself that I'm capable. The elders exchanged glances, communicating silently before Marcus spoke. If you're truly willing to undergo trials, we can arrange them. 3 tests, combats, strategy, and leadership. Pass all 3 and you'll have our full support as Luna. 1 week, Elena added. That should give you time to prepare. Rhett looked like he wanted to argue, but I squeezed his hand. I accept your terms. After the meeting, Rhett pulled me aside in the corridor. His expression troubled. Why did you do that? You have nothing to prove to them. I have everything to prove, I corrected. To them, to the kingdom, and most importantly to myself. All my life, people have told me I'm not good enough. I let them define me, let their opinions become my reality. But I have a wolf now, Rhett. A rare, powerful wolf. And I have you believing in me. Maybe it's time I started believing in myself. His expression softened, though worry still clouded his eyes. These trials won't be easy. The council will push you to your limits. Good. I want them to. I need to know what I'm truly capable of. He pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly. Then I'll help you prepare. We'll train every day, and by the time those trials arrive, you'll be ready. You really think I can do this? I asked against his chest. I know you can. You've survived 22 years of isolation, rejection, and pain. You've endured what would have broken most wolves. That takes strength most people never develop. Now you just need to how to channel it. His faith in me was humbling and terrifying in equal measure. But as I stood there in his embrace, feeling my wolf's contentment through our bond, I made myself a promise. I would pass these trials. Not to prove anything to the council or the kingdom, but to prove to that broken, scared Omega I'd been for so long that he was never actually broken at all. He was just waiting for his moment to shine. And that moment was now. The week leading up to the trials passed in a blur of intensive training. Rhett woke me before dawn each day, pushing my newly awakened wolf to her limits. Combat training left me bruised and exhausted, but I improved rapidly. My silver wolf was faster than we'd anticipated, more agile, with reflexes that seemed almost supernatural. Your wolf is reacting before your mind fully processes threats, Rhett observed after I'd successfully dodged a complex attack pattern. That's the moon goddess's blessing showing through. Trust her instincts. Strategy sessions were held with Rhett's military advisors, who walked me through various scenarios of kingdom defense. I absorbed everything like a sponge, my years of observation finally finding practical application. Being invisible in my old pack had taught me to watch, to analyze, to understand dynamics that others missed. Leadership training was the hardest. Rhett brought in advisors who'd worked with previous Lunas, teaching me about dispute resolution, resource allocation, and the delicate balance of maintaining pack morale. It was overwhelming, but I refused to give up. Each night Rhett would find me studying in the library, buried in texts about pack law and kingdom history. You need rest, he'd say, gently closing whatever book I was reading. I need to be ready, I'd counter, but I'd let him lead me to bed anyway, falling asleep in his arms as he whispered encouragement. The day of the trials arrived with perfect weather, bright sunshine and clear skies that seemed almost mocking, given the turmoil in my stomach. The arena was packed with kingdom members, all eager to see if their Alpha King's mate would succeed or fail spectacularly. Rhett walked with me to the entrance, his hand warm and steady on my lower back. Remember everything we practiced. Trust your wolf, trust yourself, and if I fail, he turned me to face him, his gray eyes intense. Then we handle it together. But you won't fail, Larry. I've seen what you're capable of this past week. You're ready. The first trial was combat against Victor, a beta warrior with 20 years of experience. The crowd murmured skeptically as we faced each other in the arena. I knew what they were thinking. The Wolfless Omega versus a seasoned fighter. This would be a massacre. Victor attacked first, fast and brutal, clearly not planning to go easy on me. Good. I didn't want pity. I let my wolf take partial control, her instincts guiding my movements. I dodged his first strike, then his second, feeling the wind of his attacks but staying just out of reach. He was stronger, but I was faster. He had experience, but I had desperation and something to prove. When I saw my opening, I took it. A feint left, then a strike right that caught him off guard. I followed with a combination we'd practiced repeatedly, each move flowing into the next like a deadly dance. Victor went down, and I had him pinned before he could recover. The arena erupted in shocked cheers. Winner, Larry, the judge announced, and I helped Victor to his feet. Not bad for someone who shifted a week ago, he said with grudging respect. The second trial was strategy. I was given a theoretical scenario: enemy forces attacking the kingdom's eastern border while refugees fled toward the capital. I had 30 minutes to devise a complete defense and evacuation plan. I closed my eyes, visualizing the kingdom's layout that I'd memorized. The eastern border was mountainous, which limited approach routes. I could use that, and the refugees would need safe passage, which meant dividing forces strategically. I outlined my plan using the mountain terrain to create choke points, positioning archers at elevated locations, establishing a rotating guard system to prevent exhaustion, and creating safe corridors for civilian evacuation with beta escorts. I addressed supply lines, communication protocols, and contingency plans for multiple scenarios. When I finished presenting to the council, Marcus leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded slowly. Your plan is sound. More than sound, it's innovative. You've thought of variables that many experienced military minds miss. Approved. 2 trials down, One to go. The leadership trial was announced. I would spend time with the kingdom's orphaned omega children, many of whom had lost their parents in recent conflicts. My task was to demonstrate that I could connect with and lead the most vulnerable members of the pack. They brought me to a common room, where 7 young omegas sat, ranging in age from 6 to 14. Their eyes were wary, suspicious. They'd learned not to trust easily. I sat down on the floor at their level, ignoring the chairs. "Hello. My name is Larry. You're the Alpha King's mate," the oldest, a girl named Sophie, said flatly. "Everyone knows I am. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here because the council wants to know if I can be a good Luna. And I think the best way to find out is to talk to wolves. You really need a Luna's support." "Why would you care about us?" the younger boy asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because I know what it's like to feel unwanted," I answered honestly. "I know what it's like to think you're broken, that something's wrong with you that can't be fixed. I spent 22 years thinking I was defective because I couldn't shift. That got their attention. But you shifted now," Sophie pointed out. "I did. Just last week actually. And you know what I learned? That all those years of people telling me I was worthless, that I didn't belong, that I'd never be good enough, they were wrong. Not because I finally shifted, but because my worth was never determined by what others thought of me." I spent the next hour talking with them, sharing my story without embellishment or sugarcoating. I told them about the loneliness, the rejection, the pain of being different. But I also told them about finding Rhett, about discovering my silver wolf, about learning that being different wasn't the same as being lesser. By the end, the youngest Omega was sitting in my lap, and the others had moved closer, their defensive walls lowered. "Will you really be our Luna?" Sophie asked. "If the council approves me, yes. And even if they don't, I'll still be here for any of you who needs someone to talk to." When the council called me back, Marcus was smiling, actually smiling. "You passed, Larry. Not just the trials, but something more important. You showed us that true leadership isn't about power or dominance. It's about empathy, understanding, and genuine care for those you lead." Rhett was waiting outside the council chamber. The moment I emerged, he swept me into his arms, lifting me off my feet. "I told you," he said fiercely. "I told you that you could do this." That evening there was a formal ceremony. Rhett stood before the entire kingdom and declared, "Larry is my mate and your Luna. Anyone who doubts his capability has only to look at what he's accomplished in a single week. Honor him as you honor me." The kingdom bowed, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly seen, truly accepted, truly enough.